Mr. Jeff Lewis, thank you very much for your time, and officially thank you very much for defending me in the Vincent Gallo lawsuit.
Thank you. Thank you for trusting your legal matter with me. This is the kind of case that I went to law school for. It was a real pleasure to both represent you and to win.
Yes, congratulations.
Correct.
Officially.
The case is done and finished.
Right. What I'd like to do is discuss the case and your thoughts on it as it happened and what you think of it now and so forth. First of all, I thought I would begin by just speaking briefly about this whole Vincent Gallo interview audio matter as it began.
Yeah, years before this legal battle, you met Vince Gallo and interviewed him, and I think...
for Free and Easy magazine in December 7th, 2003.
Yeah, why don't you speak a little bit about how that interview came about and what you did with that interview?
Right. Well, first of all, I pitched Free and Easy magazine. Would you like Vincent Gallo in your magazine? Because he, at the time, was very popular in Japan. And they said, sure, go ahead. And I contacted Vincent Gallo through his website. That's the only way to contact him. And I think it still is, Vincent at vincentgallo.com. And he said, I only do covers. So I asked Free and Easy if he'll only do it for a cover guarantee, and I got it for him. So I was in touch with him from then. And then we scheduled it a week or two later, December 7th. He was putting finishing touches in the edit of Brown Bunny, I think, which just came back, and he just come back from Cannes, I think, or something of that sort, or he's about to go to Cannes, I can't remember. Interview and the photo shoot was scheduled for 12 o'clock at my photographer friend, the photographer of the day, Tim Cadiente, his friend's restaurant on Hollywood Boulevard, way up high in big Hollywood Boulevard. We were at the restaurant at 12 o'clock, Tim and myself, and then I got a call from Vincent saying, my car broke down, you have to pick me up. So, of course, I go to pick him up so we can get on with the photo shoot and do the interview. And then I see that he's with an assistant who ended up submitting a declaration in this whole lawsuit mess, Catherine Duran. And I wondered then, why couldn't his assistant drive him less than 20 blocks?
Good question.
And he said, well, she has to go somewhere, so you have to take me.
Anybody ask for your input?
That's your proof?
What's this guy's problem?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, I got a fucking problem. I got a big fucking problem. Bullshit.
That I couldn't believe.
That's how he is.
I mean, what kind of person does this?
Joe, trust me on this. You've made a mistake.
Frankly, I was a little surprised.
What the hell for? It'd just be more bullshit.
This is very disappointing.
Do you have any other questions for me, counselor?
Her whole declaration that she never saw the microphone, she left soon after. And she did chime in the beginning of the interview, but when she saw that I had this microphone, this very microphone that I mentioned.
What kind of microphone is that you're holding?
This is a Sony mini disc. This was designed for mini disc players, and this is what I used at the time. And you see it in all my magazine work, mostly with David Lynch, and you see it in the pictures with Martin Landau. This is what I used until I got into all this fancy video stuff. And this is how I held it to his mouth, and that's why the audio quality was so good. Okay. And you don't hear me very well because it's always more important that I catch what
very good
my interviewee's saying.
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
If you weren't there, how do you know it's true?
Like it never happened?
There's a whole group of guys who pretend to be making special films, just real players.
It's that whole new American young directors.
Like Wes Anderson
Wes
sucks.
Anderson,
Spike Jonze
Spike
sucks.
Jonze, David O. Russell, all the music video directors.
Yeah. Spike Jonze sucks bad. James Gray sucks.
But Spike Jonze was a biker, you know what I mean? BMX biker, and he was an editor for a magazine.
Listen,
and then
I
he
know
got
Spike Jonze since he's 11 years old. Let me tell you what. He was a rich Jew from the Upper East Side who was fascinated with Negroes.
Is he from Vermont or something?
Listen to me, okay? He's a rich Jew from New York who saw a bunch of black and Hispanics and wanted to be like them. So he sort of buddied up on the skateboard, BMX bike scene. He's embarrassing as a BMXer. He's embarrassing as a skateboarder.
Have I got your attention now? Good.
Now, before you asked him a single question, before you started the interview, did you agree to any limitations on what you could ask him or what you would do with this interview?
He never made any prerequisites except that I have to be on the cover, guaranteed. That's all.
Okay.
I never had to sign anything that this is going to go only for free and easy or whatever.
So you showed up to take his interview. You put this large microphone in his face,
Right.
Visible.
Right.
His associate left. What happened?
And we were
next?
waiting for the tow truck to arrive. So we were talking, and in one of Vincent's declarations, he does say, "How could he have had the microphone in my face?" I think maybe his attorney, what's his first name? Joseph Costa. I think it might have been his declaration. How could he have held the magazine talking to Vincent if he had the microphone in his hand? Well, Vincent had the mic. He was looking through the magazine, and I had the microphone in his mouth.
Very good.
I mean, it's pretty simple.
This place where you were interviewing him at the first part of this interview, was it in a quiet, secluded location?
It was in the middle of the street because we had to wait for the tow truck because his car wouldn't go anywhere. It was on the street.
And were people walking back and forth during the interview?
Right by the bus station.
Very good. Okay.
And Vincent does say in his, I think his last declaration that I end the interview suddenly in mid-sentence and I never said anything like, "Thank you for your time, thank you for participating in the interview." I mean, am I supposed to say that? I say things in my own way. It ended because we were 2 hours late for the photo shoot already, and we're approaching time for the restaurant to open for dinner. So we had to rush, and he knew that. And I already told him that we're going to finish the interview, and if we don't finish today, we'll do it another time by phone.
Okay, so you agreed to do a second part by phone.
Right. But it's really more for his favor because he did all the talking in the first part, and it didn't cover his movie at all. And I didn't think it would really serve his movie if he didn't say anything about the film that's about to come out.
And did that second part of the interview take place? Did he call you?
Yes, we did this on the 14th of December, exactly next Sunday. And he was on his way back driving to New York. And again, in his declaration says, well, the mood and the tone of the interview are completely different. But in the second part of the interview, he was so depressed that he had just announced his retirement from show business because that his movie was being received and so forth. So
that's why I announced my retirement recently.
Oh, really? So you're only going to make movies when you really feel like it?
I have no plans to work in any way whatsoever after today. Yesterday was my last day of work, and I have no plans to work again in any shape or form.
Of course, there's different tones. And of course, phone interview and an interview in person is completely different. So there's an explanation to everything, but when you're telling the truth, there's definitely a deeper explanation to everything.
Of course.
And I have an answer to everything.
And what did you do with the recordings after you concluded the interview?
The copy of both parts of the interview was sent to Free and Easy magazine, and excerpts from both parts were used in the cover issue with Vincent Gallo on it. It came out, I guess, February 2004.
And did there come a time where Vince Gallo started selling copies of that magazine featuring him on the cover?
Yes, it's customary for me at least, to give a number of copies to whoever in the magazine works, certainly, whoever participated in the magazine. I always made a point of sending it to them or delivering it to them, and I sent him a whole box of magazines, and he wrote an email, send me more if you can. And I found out that he was selling them on his website along with other magazines, $105 a piece, and they were sold out. So I ordered him a whole big box of extra magazines, and I'm sure he profited from it. So the point is, he knew that the interviews were in the magazine. It was already published. It was already a published interview. So but my thing was, I've always believed that an interview is my property, and unless I agreed to not sell it to somebody else or air it to somebody else. Maybe Vincent does with other people, but he never did with me. So I had this audio, the original recording, in my possession, and when I started my website in 2009, which is 6 years after that interview, I decided in 2010 that, this sounds like an entertaining interview. I'll post it on my website.
Along with other interviews?
Other interviews, Mickey Rourke, all other past interviews before my video website career.
The heck do you mean?
You want answers? You can't handle the truth!
How many people have you interviewed?
Upwards of 100 probably close to 150, honestly.
After you posted that interview on the website, what happened next?
Well, almost immediately that evening, the thing went viral, so I had tons of emails through my website of the website is crashing and so forth. And then I see magazine articles that night coming out about this is a really rare audio and this is incredible audio and so forth.
Were you surprised?
I was, actually, because I never thought they would have that kind of a reaction. Honestly, I thought Vincent would be kind of amused by it, but he contacted me that night and started calling me names through emails, started threatening me, you piece of shit, this and that, whatever. But at this point, we've won the case outright, so there's no point for me to really get into that kind of details. And he was harassing me with emails for quite a while, certainly the first few days and on. And I knew even back then in 2010, April of 2010, that I had the right to publish my work, audio that I own, 7 years later.
Did you take down the audio when he sent you these threatening emails?
Never.
Okay.
One thing that he did do was he complained to my then host, a company called Just Host, that this is invasion of privacy, you take it down immediately. And they threatened to take it down if I didn't take it down, and I refused to do so. And then my website went dark for, a few hours, perhaps half a day or so. And then I did research on what I could do, and I learned from an attorney friend that I could serve a DMC, Digital Millennium
Copyright Act.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I served them with that this is my property, and they couldn't do anything about it. So every time Gallo contacted them again, they said, look, there's nothing we can do. But at that time, I thought these guys don't have any backbone, so I started researching other hosts to perhaps move to. Because this is hardly WikiLeaks or anything like that, but I know that in the age of the internet, as it was already in 2010, a lot of things were being published, and journalists had their rights.
Absolutely.
So I found out that my current host Duplex, are very, very good and very supportive of artists. So I changed hosting companies to them. But at no point did I ever agree to taking the audio down. I actually never, ever answered an email that Vincent sent me.
He showed up on your doorstep one day.
That is the only contact that I had. This happened, so the audio was published in 2010. It went, more articles, more people talking about it. It went viral. But one afternoon in August 2011, I was about to head off to go teach some tennis. And the bell rings, and my dogs are barking, and then there's this big bearded man outside. Then I said, who the hell is that? And then I figure, oh my God, it's Vincent Gallo. What the hell is he doing here? So, what was I going to do? I'm not going to confront him. So I just kept getting ready, left. Then I find out that he's hiding in his car on the next block. Then he starts following me all the way into the freeway, chasing me. I go faster on the 90 freeway, and he's chasing me down the freeway.
Wow.
All the way till I got to my destination. I'm not going to change my life for him. I got to my destination, which is the Glen Alla Park in Marina del Rey, and I got out of my car. I started walking towards him. Then he made one of those, movie-like U-turns and called me a few expletives.
He knew it was wrong what he did.
He was wrong, believe me, he knows.
Is that supposed to be funny?
Fuck's sake, man, you're amateur.
Rules are rules, otherwise what?
Vincent.
Anytime, anywhere.
If you were a man, you would have done it now. You don't got a thing. You got nothing. Nothing.
But I also have videotape of the whole thing, of him outside my house, and we never used this because we were going to save it for another day.
Wow.
So that was 2011. So I have never taken this thing down. It's always been on my website. And what happened next was in January of 2016, I received an email from one of Gallo's attorneys saying, we've noticed that you put this audio back on the web. If you don't take it down immediately, if you don't take it down by a certain date, which was a couple of days, 5 days later or something, then we will sue you. And I sent a email back through some counsel from my attorney friend, that this is a frivolous lawsuit. This audio has never been taken down, nor have I ever agreed to take it down. If you go ahead with the lawsuit, I will countersue for malicious prosecution. So I told him right there. And sure enough, in
May 2016.
Yeah. 2 months later, I find out from the Hollywood Reporter that I've been sued by Vincent Gallo through Joseph Costa.
They accused you of violating the penal code, committing
yes,
a crime.
well, violation of privacy, publication of private facts, 1. Violation of common law rights of publicity, 2. Violation of California Civil Code 3344, whatever that is. Violation of California Penal Code 637.2, which is punishable with up to a year in jail. So a very serious accusation, suddenly.
He sought millions of dollars in damages for harm to his career.
Yes.
Right?
I wasn't surprised in a way, because I was always ready for something might happen. But in 2016, from something that I published in 2010, this time I knew that I had all kinds of rights to the 10th power, plus the statute of limitation. And at the same time, Bill Cosby was going through his problems, I think, and his stuff was being thrown out for statute of limitation.
Right. You had the First Amendment on your side. You had the statute of limitations. This is a decade old. And most importantly, he consented to the interview. Yes. He jammed a microphone in his face and he spoke to it. The law says in California, when a celebrity has a mic put in front of their face and they speak, that's consent to being interviewed.
Right.
So you were hit with this lawsuit in the Hollywood Reporter magazine. What did you do next?
Hollywood Reporter, Court News, and a bunch of other, Yahoo, a bunch of other places picked it up. So suddenly I was the guy that secretly records celebrities' conversations.
Yeah,
I've never been accused of anything like that. And again, I've interviewed 130, 40, 150 celebrities. I can't even count. Majority of them are much bigger stars than Vincent Gallo, by the way.
Right.
And this is not an insult, because that's just fact. I've always conducted myself in a professional manner. I always believed that this is my property, and this was an interview, and I have the right to publish it. So what was I going to do being sued with four complaints?
Right.
Major complaints.
Causes of action.
Causes of action.
Did you turn to the Electronic Frontier Foundation for help?
Yes, I did. But just by my nature, first thing I did was research. What rights do I have? I know I have rights, but how far can I take it? But my first reaction was, I can defeat, when I read Joseph Costa's... the
complaint? The complaint. The allegations?
I can honestly say it was absolutely ridiculous. It was laughable, the stuff that they're making up. And I knew, like I said, I was prepared, so I kept records of everything. I knew I could fight this with so much legitimate records and ammunition that my first reaction was, I can probably, because I have won both small claims and limited civil cases on my own in the past. But this is a much bigger situation when there's a penal code 6372 involved, is what I found out from some of my friends. So I sought First Amendment rights websites, started reading up material, and then I discovered this thing called the anti-SLAPP motion, and California happens to be one of the states. And this was like a unbelievable godsend, because I knew I could defeat this thing anyway, but I knew that the chances are it's going to take a long time, whether I did it on my own or with an attorney. But the anti-SLAPP is something that is a motion that a defendant can file so that the court can save resources and time for a frivolous lawsuit.
Right. California was on the forefront of passing an anti-SLAPP statute. A SLAPP, S-L-A-P-P, is a strategic lawsuit against public participation, usually filed by somebody who's very wealthy against somebody of modest means, in an effort to silence sometimes a critic or a reporter or a journalist or a Yelp, an online reviewer. And usually the lawsuit is frivolous, but it's designed to shake someone down and deter them from speaking. And so California passed the anti-SLAPP law, which allows a defendant to go to court very quickly and get rid of a frivolous lawsuit very quickly and be made whole with both a dismissal and an award of attorney's fees.
Right.
And you, prior to this case, hadn't really been familiar with anti-SLAPP law.
Not at all.
But
the first I heard, it was a godsend, really. But it was almost like, I felt like it was tailor-made for this situation. And the fact that attorney fees have to be paid from the losing party, I thought, oh my gosh, then I can get myself a First Amendment attorney, or even better, an anti-SLAPP expert. So I started doing research on that. But before I started even looking that stuff up, of course, as soon as the Hollywood Reporter article came up online the night that the lawsuit was filed, by the next day, I was receiving 5 letters from different law firms saying, we'd love to represent you.
Wow.
By the end of the week, the lawsuit was Tuesday. By the end of the week, and by the next week, I probably had 30 letters from different law firms around.
Wow.
Century City, Beverly Hills, we'd love to represent you on this. Of course, it's not very hard to find my address, probably. They wanted to get a client. And I did meet with some of them. But again, I'd done my own research, and I knew what I needed was an anti-SLAPP expert. All the websites and all that, those are the areas that we do, including anti-SLAPP. But I thought, when I started doing some research, that there are such things as somebody who just only does this, and that's what I was looking for. And I was very lucky to find a website called the Electronic
Frontier Foundation. The EFF.
EFF, and that's almost what their program's all about, isn't it? To find attorneys that.
Well, they do a lot of things. They want to keep the internet free and unregulated. They do have a panel of lawyers that are cooperating attorneys that in every state that will help out somebody like you who is sued with a SLAPP suit, so that one of these volunteer lawyers can step up and help you extricate yourself from a lawsuit like this.
Right. And when I started reading up on some of the attorneys and the cases, they were not just attorneys looking for a case so that because they needed more business. These were like really good SLAPP attorneys. And I was more impressed with their results and the cases they're doing than the big firms that I was getting letters from.
Sure.
And when I started meeting with some of these bigger firms, they're pretty much all saying the same thing. Oh, but you have a penal code also, though, so we're not sure how we're going to get around that. But I knew, and I've read thoroughly the Costa's first complaint, the papers,
right?
Full of holes, full of lies. So I just knew that this is if it were the right attorney, this could be dismissed. And Miss Amul from EFF gave me a bunch of names that I should talk to, and they were very helpful, a lot of the attorneys, and they wanted to handle my case. But just to move forward, it really came down to I was really considering perhaps 3 attorneys. About 7 of them were willing to do it on a contingency basis. If I shouldn't say that, I'll cut it out.
No, that's fine.
But I can't afford such a lawsuit like this, and I'm sure this is what, whether Vincent Gallo found Costa or Costa, I don't know how they met, but I'm sure part of that deal was, look, you want this audio out of there, then I'll do it, and I'll do it like this. And I'm sure that's how they told him on it, because I'm sure the whole process was very expensive for on his side. So it came down to 3 attorneys, and I was very close to this one very high-profile attorney who's on a lot of TV shows and so forth. But my instinct just said, look, I've met this many people, but I'm not sure if I have the true expert that's only committed to the anti-SLAPP motion. And so I went to Amul one more time saying, look, is there any way you can get somebody who's really just an expert in this? And he said, well, talk to Jeff Lewis. And I emailed you, and you emailed me back while you were in court saying, look,
right,
this sounds like something I could help you with.
Right, I
And,
remember
yeah, and
that.
you didn't say anything about, but the penal code or anything. They said, look, I think I can get you off on this.
Yeah, this is the kind of case I went to law school for.
Right.
Someone trying to exercise their First Amendment rights and being bullied in court
Mhm.
for it. And that's why I agreed to help you.
And I think my emails that I sent, a lot of the attorneys, my first emails was very detailed.
Mm-hmm. I do remember
And
that.
you read it and you said, I think I can get you off on this.
Yeah.
And I think I can get you off on all of these.
Yeah.
I just knew, we just connected. I just knew that, you were the right guy. So we committed to each other, within
very
within
quickly.
12 hours, I think.
We never met.
Yeah. And, well, but we had to, because it had to be filed within what, a week?
We had a very short window.
We had like 8 days, right?
Yeah, to get things on file.
Yeah.
And we put together a very detailed declaration.
Yeah, a lot of hard work on your part.
On your part as well. You're one of the most detail-oriented clients
Yeah, well,
I've ever had.
I worked all day for those all those days.
I remember.
Because I did not want to regret something at the end. I should have done more work to help Jeff.
Yeah, you. I wish all my clients had your dedication to accuracy and thoroughness because.
Well, it's your life. I mean, why wouldn't you? If you think about it.
By the time we were done, we had this massive, detailed declaration explaining how the interview came up, how Vince consented to the interview, and how you were in the right. And we put it together. We filed an anti-SLAPP motion. We asked Judge Fahey to dismiss the case, and that was May. You had the complaint filed against you. And I think by July we had filed the anti-SLAPP motion, and we got it heard in August.
Right.
It was very fast track.
Not to mention just stacks of evidential material that we filed.
Oh, sure.
Including statistics.
They said the website had your audio files had come down off the website. You had voluntarily taken them down, and we had the stats that showed not only had it been up, but month to month how many hits these
Right.
audios had taken every month over the whole time period.
Exactly.
And you supplied me with that.
Counselor? Counselor?
You don't know jack shit. I do.
We're done here.
God damn you, Joe. Don't make me do this. Joe, you're barking up the wrong tree. Joe, I don't know what you think you know, but you're wrong.
All right, explain this to me like I'm a 2-year-old, okay?
Come on, huh?
Here we go.
I think I'm entitled.
Are you gonna bark all day, little doggy? Or are you gonna bite?
And in light of recent humiliations,
What the fuck are you talking about?
You're unbelievable, man. You're unfucking believable.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
Counselor! Counselor!
I don't see a case.
Winning?
No. Somebody reliable. And I'm not talking about a lawyer either.
Period. Fuck you.
And this is what you couldn't wait to talk to me about?
I would rather you just said thank you and went on your way.
I don't buy it, counselor.
Counselor.
I know this man. He wouldn't do that. He's a good kid.
Jesus Christ, Joe. Fucking forget about it.
He doesn't give a fuck.
You got a good lawyer? Makes all the difference. It's gonna take a hell of a lot more than that, counselor, to prove you're better than me.
We had excerpts from various blogs and chat rooms talking about this interview, how it was so widespread, and we had a refutation by you in terms of the microphone and how it was impossible for him to have had a hidden microphone used because of the sound quality issues.
Yes, well, let me explain that part, because their whole case, I think for some people that are not attorneys and journalists and others perhaps, I think perhaps we should explain that how we come to a point we file an anti-SLAPP motion as the defendant side, and then there are declaration papers that go back and forth.
Right, we filed a motion including your declaration. Vince Gallo's team filed an opposition including declarations from Vince and his producer and others, and then we filed a reply, and I think we did a reply declaration.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
just a lot of work.
It was time consuming
because we had so much stuff, and I have reserved stuff that I save for
later on,
perhaps the appeal or the
trial.
Yeah. So but we were ready. We were ready. We had plenty of stuff. But had it gone to trial, it would have been a waste of time. So they made the right. Judge Fahey.
The hearing came in August, and the judge had some very hard questions for Gallo's attorney, Joe Costa. One of the big questions the judge had is, well, if it's true, if you think these audios were taken down and then put back up, why didn't you hire a computer expert to prove that fact? And Gallo didn't have a good answer for that. Or excuse me, Gallo's lawyer, Mr. Costa, didn't have a good answer for that. Another area was, I don't recall the exact point, but the judge said, where in the papers would I find evidence regarding that argument? And Joe Costa looked at the judge and said, well, Your Honor, we cited a Wikipedia.
Mm.
And the judge said, wait. Are you seriously citing to Wikipedia in my courtroom? Right. Come on.
Yeah,
that was the moment I knew we had won.
Yeah, yeah.
And the judge dismissed the case, and the complaint was dismissed.
But if I may say, I mean, I showed up just to be an audience member because it's, you guys are talking about my life, really, the future of my life, and so it was no question I had to be there. But of course, Vincent Gallo didn't show up. But had he been there, he would have seen how, well, quite frankly, how incompetent his attorney was, and how unprepared he was, and honestly, I don't think he understood the case.
Yeah, it's a shame there wasn't a court reporter for that first hearing on this anti-SLAPP motion, because it really would have captured the arguments.
I mean, I don't think he understood the case. I'm saying in terms of, I mean, I think Mr. Costa is one of these fellows who really doesn't understand how the internet works. One of the most comical things was, he says, well, Your Honor, Mr. Takano moved his .com to a .co, which is a Colombian website. He moved his site to elude my client that he's publishing his audio. And Judge Fahey said, what? What Colombian website? What are you talking about?
Right.
.co is not a Colombian website. .co is an American startup. Right. Very successful, and it's a lot of artists, and it's a very successful domain.
TLD, top level domain?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it is not, yes, Colombia do have .com, .co, but there, if you're in Colombia, it goes .co.com.
Oh,
so it is not .co. Yeah. .co is a private company, an American company. It is not a Colombian website. So, I mean, his attorney brings that up in the hearing, and he didn't even know that. Right. It's just pathetic, really, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And he was really squirming, really. Because the way the hearing went, Judge Fahey was very generous in letting him speak, because one after the other, he was just throwing stuff out.
I remember.
He was throwing it out. What else do you have? No, that's not. This guy did not commit a crime. He's a journalist. He was doing his job. What else? He was very generous not to just get completely pissed off with him. But Costa just kept throwing these ridiculous notions of what I was doing, so that if they can't prove that I took the website, the audio down at any point, and we provided proof that it's been on there every day since 2010, almost every day, except for like web maintenance and so forth. It was really ridiculous. I mean, I was really surprised that supposedly an attorney of his level and the firm, because I'm familiar with that firm, because a friend of mine works for a firm that goes against their firm often, because he represents another bigger talent agency than Costa's firm represents. They represent Paradigm. Right. And I've done my research on what they do, but I was surprised that, I don't know if it's unpreparedness or just lack of knowledge in this area. I mean, of course, I knew that you end up having you didn't even have to say anything.
I said very little during that interview. That's true. I mean, during that hearing.
At the very end, he says, "Okay, Mr. Lewis, you've been patient. What do you have to say?" And he said one sentence, and that was it.
Right.
And it was over. The writing was on the wall.
Right.
All things considered, he's got a legitimate beef.
You don't scare me, tough guy. Well, come on.
They were assuming the whole time that I secretly recorded. I mean, of course, why wouldn't you go with that if that's the only thing you have to go by? And also, my defense to that is that why is his voice in the first part of the interview so clear?
Crystal clear.
Crystal clear on Hollywood and Vine on a Sunday afternoon at 12 o'clock. If I may explain, this microphone that I used on that day is considered a directional mic. A directional mic is a mic that goes this way, and this is also a directional mic. It looks like this. So the only way I could have secretly recorded in that place, if I didn't have the microphone by his mouth, is if I had some kind of a very powerful directional mic hidden somewhere. Now, Costa's associate, I believe, Mr. Vesalius wrote some kind of a bogus declaration saying that, oh, Takano seems very fond of using lavalier mics in his interviews, and he has a sponsorship with Countryman Audio, lavalier mics. Yes, Countryman Audio has been my sponsor since 2016. I did not use lavalier mics, or certainly a hidden lavalier mic somewhere. If I had a lavalier mic like this, and to get Vincent Gallo's voice that clear, I'd have to be face to face with him.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
Well, I didn't know you wanted to get involved with the discussion, Mr. Helper.
Fucking nauseating.
Oh, you think this is funny, huh? There's a man's reputation at stake here.
Counselor! Yeah!
For his campaign!
All due respect.
If people were to listen to the audio, his voice is so clear, I sound like I'm in the distance, because it's more important for me to get what the guy says, not what I... Because this is a print interview. What I say, like in this kind of interview, a video interview, is not important. It's what the guy says.
Right, and we submitted a CD audio of the interview to the judge so he could hear how clear Gallo's voice was and how muffled and distant your voice was, and how it was physically impossible for a lavalier mic hidden somewhere on your body to achieve that sound quality.
Right.
It's just not possible.
And wouldn't he see it if I did? I mean, this is a lavalier mic, obviously. Countryman lavalier mic that, I don't know, I forgot his first name, Mr. Vesalius mentioned in his declaration. This is a typical distance to place a lavalier mic.
Right.
Now, if I had it hidden on my wrist or something, now I don't think you can hear my voice very well. It's certainly not as clear as Vincent Gallo had it. I mean, even if I had it hidden somewhere, would people see it? I mean, first of all, I don't know what he's going to say.
Right.
And I wanted to eavesdrop that badly to get that kind of audio so that I can profit from it 6-7 years later.
Alright, we're going.
Oh, for Christ's sake here.
Objection, Your Honor.
Mind if I sit right here? Thanks.
Yeah, good, nice.
Absolutely fucking not.
Oh, you were finished.
You have a big mouth, and now I'm going to show you an even bigger one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Oh, really?
Oh, well, allow me to retort.
As a filmmaker, he is nothing, a zero. He's brought nothing to the page, brought nothing to the picture. If you bring him to a party and there's 10 interesting people there, if I'm with Johnny Ramone, John Frusciante, 10 of my friends, and Spike is there, which it's happened 100 times. He's the least interesting. He's the person who doesn't know anything. He's the person who doesn't say anything funny, interesting, intelligent. He has no point of view. All he does is want to find out what you think, so he's sure about what he should be doing. What do you think? What do you think? He's a pig piece of shit. Him and his fucking milk ex-wife.
microphone that I described in the declaration. Here goes. As a filmmaker, he is nothing, a zero. He's brought nothing to the page or nothing to the picture. If you bring him to a party and there's 10 interesting people there, if I'm with John Ramon, John Frusciante, 10 of my friends, and Spike is there, which has happened 100 times, he's the least interesting. He's a person that doesn't know anything. He's a person who doesn't say anything funny, interesting, intelligent. He has no point of view. All he does is want to find out what you think, so he's sure about what he should be doing. What do you think? What do you think? He's a pig piece of shit. Him and his fucking MILF ex-wife. Okay? So here's a countryman lavalier that Vasilia said that I recorded with. This uses the XLR, so it doesn't even record with a Sony Mini Sport. So here we go. As a filmmaker, he is nothing, a zero. He's brought nothing to the page or nothing to the picture. If you bring him to a party and there's 10 interesting people, if I'm with John Ramon, John Frusciante, 10 of my friends, and Spike is there, which has happened 100 times, he's the least interesting person. He's a person that doesn't know anything. He's the person who doesn't say anything funny, interesting, intelligent. He has no point of view. All he does is want to find out what you think, so he's sure about what he should be doing. What do you think? What do you think? He's a big piece of shit. He's a fucking MILF ex-wife. Okay, that's for the Countryman audio, and a much, much better advanced recorder that wouldn't have been out at the time. Okay, thank you. Game, set, and match. Great, thank you.
No fucking way. Never.
Swung on a drill to right field. Throwing back Sanders on the track at the wall. See ya! See ya! See ya! A home run by Derek Jeter.
You know, I don't want to talk about that situation ever again with anybody. You understand me?
You want me to be frank?
Where did you learn your trade? Oh, I'm gonna have your job, shithead.
What are you gonna say now, right?
What are you gonna do about it, asshole?
You are one pathetic loser.
You're what the French call les incompetents.
0.0.
Yes, you did! Yes, you did!
Where the fuck did you get the balls?
Yeah, that's my message to you. Fuck you and kiss my ass.
Now go home and get your fucking shine box.
And also, he makes a big deal about, oh, he profits from my audio. My website, as it stands now, is completely non-profit. I pay for any production costs out of my own pocket doing other jobs, video work and so forth, teaching tennis, whatever, to produce my own content. So
it's not an exaggeration to say that Vince probably made more money off selling magazines signed by him, the Fresh and Easy magazine, than you've ever made off this interview.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and this microphone is a lavalier mic here, but this is a parabola. You see these kind of things in the football sideline of the football stadiums, and this is an invention of a mini parabola with a lavalier, so that it turns into a sort of a directional mic. This technology was invented by this company called SoundShark only perhaps 2 years ago. So in 2003, I mean, and also if I'd be holding this thing while I'm talking to Vincent, if I had a lavalier, as they claimed that I had a hidden lavalier somewhere.
Yeah! Hell no!
I mean, the whole theory is just ridiculous, and for someone like myself who knows how microphones work, it's just absolutely laughable.
Let me ask you this. The case against you was filed in May. We filed our anti-SLAPP in July. It was heard in August and dismissed. Did having the case dismissed make it all right for you? Or are there still some lingering effects of this ridiculous lawsuit being...
Well, first of all, it's definitely a frivolous lawsuit. And to be called out in public that I secretly recorded a celebrity's audio is outrageous. Have I lost interviews and did I have a productive 2016? No, because I've had to do so much work on this. It's a very serious thing to be accused of a crime.
Well, hang on. You will never know if a celebrity or a person who wanted to be interviewed with you didn't pick up the phone because of this news article and this complaint about you.
Or their publicist or their agent. Hollywood Reporter is the biggest, with Variety, the biggest trade paper in the world.
And even the article that reported on our anti-SLAPP victory and the dismissal of the case still included disparaging comments about you made by Attorney Joe Costa. Isn't that true?
Which I think is, I mean, I would imagine it's a mistake, isn't it? And they lost already. The thing says they lost.
Fucking balls on that prick.
I trust you didn't lose sleep over it.
You got the briefcase. It's on the game, though, right?
And he says we're going to appeal and we'll prove the corruptness of Takano's nature or something about him.
But at the end of the day, they abandoned their appeal.
Yes. They threw in the towel, so to speak.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, they just bullshitted their way through, excuse my language, but I know this is their attorney's office, but they just made up so many lies, and it was a very hard year. Because, until you're in court and a judge or a jury makes a decision of what the outcome is, I'm sure people still believe that I did something.
I can't imagine the stress you felt in terms of reading that Hollywood Reporter article, reading the complaint, and until the moment we got the case dismissed, the stress you felt about the millions of dollars.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah,
because that reporter didn't write but he probably didn't do it. She wrote it like basically reading the complaint that I secretly recorded and published the audio and profited from it.
I'm kind of surprised the reporter who wrote that article didn't understand that journalists, reporters have a First Amendment right to collect the news, to report on the news. Readers have a First Amendment right to read the news. Mm-hmm. And a lawsuit like this could have chilling effect on people who gather the news, people who report the news, and people who read the news. And in this day and age, the free flow of information and a free press is essential to our democracy. And I'm just surprised she didn't, that was not more reflective in her article.
Mm-hmm. Well, they want to go with a fancy headline. But I think, for the most part, they did a better job reporting when we filed the anti-SLAPP, and certainly when we won the motion, because you filed such a solid...
I was proud of our anti-SLAPP motion.
Yes, the anti-SLAPP motion
the declaration.
was so full of evidence and citing the case examples and so forth. I mean, it was, I hate to use the word airtight, but I thought it was so solid that even the Hollywood Reporter said that if Vincent Gallo can't prove that I didn't record it,
right,
that he's going to have a hard time beating the anti-SLAPP.
Yeah.
They were already predicting.
Yeah, they were predicting it. I mean, in my career, I've had close cases. This was not a close case.
Yeah.
This was you being stripped of your First Amendment rights, and it was wrong, and I'm glad we prevailed.
I'm just curious. Did you doubt at any point that thing could... Well, of course, with the anti-SLAPP motion, once we file the anti-SLAPP motion, the plaintiff can't amend their original complaint, which is a huge advantage when you are innocent.
You'll take care of this, right?
I object, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I have no objection.
Oh, good for you!
What are you, a comedian?
Oh, really? Well, I'm glad you feel that way.
You stupid cocksucker! 'Cause I'm smart. Vincent, we happy?
Yeah, whatever.
Right.
You believe this fucking guy? Fucking Philadelphia lawyer.
Again with the money? Their first papers were so bad, so full of lies that. But the other attorneys didn't. I tried to explain to them that look, this is gold. We're golden here, and then they weren't. They still said, but the penal code, you know.
Right.
But to me, you seem completely confident from the beginning. Did you have any doubts at any point at all?
Well,
because you had conversations with Costa, and we didn't know how he was going to be in court.
Sure, and Mr. Costa called me and he said, "Listen, Vince has the money to take this all the way. Vince is in this for the long haul." He tried to drive a wedge between you and me, saying that you didn't have any money and you didn't have the money to take this all the way. At that time, I don't think Costa realized I was doing this pro bono because I'm passionate about the First Amendment. And I never really doubted the merits of your case. I never doubted the law. The only thing I ever doubted was you never know if on that particular morning you get called for a hearing whether the judge has had enough time to read your papers and understand your papers. And in this case, I don't know if you recall, I guess there was a research clerk or research attorney who had done most of the work on this, and he was actually in the audience, and the judge referred to that research attorney during the hearing, indicating that that research attorney had done all the work. And I think the moment I knew we were going to win was when the judge slammed Mr. Costa for citing to Wikipedia.
Yeah.
That's when I knew we're going to win this case.
Relax, it's an expression. No offense.
I never doubted you. I never doubted the facts. I never doubted the law. I just worried, could I get a judge who would take the time to read the papers and understand the First Amendment? And we did.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that judges had that kind of aid. Is that only in a civil case?
No, in every civil, family law, criminal law, there are...
So it's not only because it's a big motion hearing.
Correct.
Yeah. Because I didn't know there was such a thing. And when I found out that there was a guy who looked through everything. If anybody looked through what we presented, it's a slam dunk.
Yeah.
Completely innocent.
It's just having the time to read the papers.
Right.
And understand.
Right. And listen, what could people learn from this? Vincent Gallo happens to be a guy who makes his own rules. Oh, I didn't give you permission. Oh, I didn't. This is not how I do it. The First Amendment and journalists' rights don't revolve around how he wants it done. Unless, he pressures you into signing it or he won't do something. But that's up to, the person but at the time. But there could be other situations where journalists could be in a situation like this saying, oh, how dare you publish this? I mean, quite frankly, there are a lot worse cases out there.
Sure.
TMZ every day.
Yeah.
There's stuff out there.
Every day there are lawsuits filed whose purpose is to chill or to silence people. And I think the more people that understand, at least in California, that there's an anti-SLAPP law, that it protects the First Amendment, and it protects news gatherers and news reporters, and people who've been hit with a big lawsuit shouldn't panic. Do your research, find a lawyer who can help you, and the law is really on your side if you haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah, Costa tried to say in the hearing, this is not... Oh, no, he said in the declaration, this is not newsworthy. This is from a voyeuristic pleasure. But the judge said, no, this man's a celebrity. Your client is a celebrity. This is newsworthy.
The First Amendment does not distinguish between reporting about UN resolutions and celebrity gossip. Yeah. It's all equal in the eyes of the First Amendment. People should not give in to frivolous lawsuits like this.
Can you say anything about your opposition? Did it help because they were a certain way? Or, I mean, again, they couldn't amend their papers, so we had a huge... I knew we had whoever I went with, we were starting off with a huge advantage. But I needed the right attorney who would really take advantage of it and ride that wave all the way through to the end. And you certainly did, and you did not back off. You had probably 7 days, maybe 6 days to file the anti-SLAPP motion because we were on a time crunch. We only had 6 days or something.
I remember.
And we filed it a couple hours short of the end of the day.
But it was on time.
We had everything in there, jam-packed.
It was a complete set
because we
of
worked
papers.
on weekends and...
Yes.
Was there any kind of intimidation?
Oh, I don't intimidate easy, but certainly there was an effort to intimidate me. I got that phone call from Joe Costa saying, Jeff, Vince has the money to go all the way. Your client doesn't have any money. You should take that audio down. And there was a clear threat. And I'll tell you what thought occurred to me is that, a lawyer has a duty to counsel his client. If a case is a dog, if a case is a loser, if a case should never be filed. And sometimes a lawyer's got to have a hard conversation with the client. Look, you shouldn't file this lawsuit. I don't think that conversation ever occurred between Joe Costa and Vince Gallo, because this lawsuit was filed. Even lay people who read about it in the newspaper would understand that you can't wait 13 years before filing a lawsuit. It's just ridiculous. Most lay people know under the First Amendment, reporters, journalists have the right to report the news. And I don't know why this lawsuit was filed. I don't know to this day.
The fact that it's 16 years, it became ridiculous, really, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you had the issue of consent and the First Amendment on
13
your
years,
side.
rather, yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't an honest attorney advise his client, look, I think we should get out before you spend more money for another 6 months? The point we filed the anti-SLAPP, I honestly don't think Costa expected me to come back with an anti-SLAPP. I think the whole idea of putting those 4 emotions into the penal code was to freak me out and go, oh, I can't go on with a court with something like this. How about if I took it down? I think that's what they were expecting. They didn't think I'll fight back with an anti-SLAPP. So that's why their papers look ridiculous, especially after they couldn't amend. I mean, would you have recommended your client to get out at that point? I mean, I really don't think Costa did. I think Gallo deserved more for his money because I think he paid quite a lot. This guy said horrible things about me, but still, he was in it to win it.
It's hard for me to imagine why this lawsuit was filed, but certainly after we filed our anti-SLAPP motion, there should have been a serious discussion about cutting and running, meaning dismissing the case and cutting your losses. But they didn't. They opposed our anti-SLAPP motion, they opposed our fee motion, and they filed 2 notices of appeal and threatened to go all the way to the California Court of Appeal to push forward on this ridiculous, time-barred, frivolous lawsuit. There should have been a conversation at every point before the lawsuit was filed, before the opposition was filed, before the notices of appeal were filed about, do we really either have the facts or the law on our side? And if you don't have either, what are you doing?
Yeah, because in the anti-SLAPP hearing, basically, I don't know, legally. All I know is that my facts and my truths, which I think, and I think ultimately it was enough, more than enough. But because Costa was doing all the talking with the judge, and you just had to say one sentence to sum it up.
Right.
They were talking about some 12 different points, and judge threw out all but one, didn't he? Or something like that?
Yeah, there were a lot of different arguments raised by Mr. Costa, and the judge tossed them all out. The only one he was really toying with was this idea of equitable estoppel, but at the end of the day, the evidence wasn't there, and they didn't hire a computer expert. Their only evidence was a reference to Wikipedia. Their arguments were premised on a misunderstanding of the .co top-level domain, and the judge didn't buy it, and he threw the lawsuit out.
It was a landslide victory, basically.
It was a complete victory.
Yeah. The equitable estoppel?
Equitable estoppel.
Because I remember, because I walked in about that time.
The argument that had been made, which if there were facts to support it, would have been a good argument, but there were no facts, which was you and Vince Gallo reached an agreement that you would take the audio down off your website, and he agreed not to sue you. And the two of you discussed this and reached this agreement. And under those circumstances, equitable estoppel would apply, meaning the statute of limitations wouldn't apply, and Vince could file this lawsuit. But the problem with that argument is it was all fantasy. It was all fabrication.
Right. And
you never agreed to take
And the judge was very good. I don't know if it was because he was advised well, but I think he read enough that he said, yes, but it says here he never communicated with Vincent.
That's exactly
since 2003. And he says here that he never took the audio down. What are you talking about?
Right.
And he says, yes, he did, though, Your Honor. And he says, well, where do you have that? And he started looking at his papers. Nothing.
Right. He said, well, Vince visited some chat rooms and noticed either it was down or it was up or something. The judge said, look, that's not evidence. Evidence is an expert, not Vince visited chat rooms.
Yeah, why doesn't he just go to my website?
Right.
Just type his name or my name, and from the first page you'll see where the audio is. Yeah. And it was on my website the whole time.
Right.
Gosh, what a ridiculous thing.
I'm so sorry you had to go through this.
Let me ask you, had this been reversed, I had a different attorney and you were representing Vincent Gallo, what would you have done?
Well, I certainly wouldn't have filed a lawsuit. I can't imagine filing a lawsuit, but suppose the lawsuit had been filed and I came in and I had to oppose.
Don't you have to have some kind of factual reasons to file a lawsuit?
A lawyer has a duty to research both the facts and the law. And when you talk to your client, the client tells you this interview occurred 13 years ago. That's a red flag that the lawsuit is frivolous. When the client tells you there's a hidden microphone, but you listen to the audio and you hear that the client is crystal clear, that's another red flag. There were a lot of red flags.
In the middle of the street.
Right, exactly. Women walking by, you can hear them.
Buses.
Right. There were some red flags that perhaps the facts were not on Vince Gallo's side. And it could be that the lawyer here was buoyed by the recent news of Hulk Hogan and Gawker.
Yeah, it was exactly the same time, yeah.
And then maybe he thought he could ride that wave and do for Vince Gallo.
Some people said that. People that I knew said, oh, I don't know. I said, look, but this is all complete bullshit. They said, yeah, but see how the Hulk Hogan thing went.
Hulk Hogan destroyed that business and those people. And you must have been unbelievably anxious.
Right. But again, the thing is, the guy was having sex with Bubba the Love Sponge's wife, and somebody took that tape, but he didn't know it was being recorded. Someone took the tape and published it. This is a completely different thing. I mean, it might not be to Vincent Gallo, in all fairness, but again, the microphone was in his mouth, and he freely said, Spike Jonze this, Sofia Coppola this, Francis Ford Coppola this, Martin Scorsese this and that.
I'll never understand to this day why he said all those things.
My take on it, he wanted to be outrageous. He was on the cover and he wanted to give an outrageous interview. People change. People might mellow after a number of years. So in that sense, maybe this was not convenient for him at that stage of his life when I published it. But again, like the judge said, I don't exist and do my work to let Vincent Gallo know my every move.
Right.
It's my possession. I do what I feel right to do.
As is your right.
Yeah, as a journalist.
No, really!
Get the fuck out.
Duh. Winning.
You get nothing. You lose.
There you go. There's the fucking problem.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
Are you professional or not?
You got some balls, kid. I'll give you that much.
So what do I owe you, counselor?
Juicy, Junior. Real juicy.
You blew it!
Winning!
That's what I always ask myself. Is it worth it financially? He's got a right to a lot of things right now.
Winner.com.
You want to fight me? You can't take me.
Well, again, thank you so much for everything. And perhaps this is not completely over and we might see one of them or both of them at some point. Spoiler alert, perhaps. But I could not thank you enough, and you did really you pitched the perfect game, basically.
Oh, thank you so much.
I mean, I had an idea of how I wanted to go, and you really did that and more because you knew the law. The thing that made me the happiest, which I think a lot of people who might be in this situation might benefit from by talking to you, is you really listen to all my opinions and my thoughts of what if we did this and that. And I don't even know the law, but I do know the truth of my situation. And you used every piece of evidence and every piece of material that I had somehow, some way, started them in the right place. And I really appreciate that, because that's one of those things. Gallo, he probably didn't read a lot of the papers that Costa was submitting. Yeah. And look what happened, But I saw where this was started here, and it was perfect. Yeah. So I really appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much.
Stay tuned.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Great. All right, thank you.
How can I learn you? How can I read you? How can I think you? And I can out-philosophize you. And I'm gonna outlast you. Counselor? Counselor?